Welcome to the next episode of Next Creators. Today we have Tabea and Nuno from Muti Collective.
Hello.
Hi. Nice to see you. So maybe we can start with you giving a couple sentences on what is Muti Collective all about.
Muti Collective is basically a physical collective based in Portugal and also a DAO in the near ecosystem. And our main topic is to support creativity and artists. So we're trying to blend in the physical events and the physical world with the possibilities you have in the crypto sphere, like maybe funding or NFTs or streaming platforms. We have really big focus on creativity, from music to, painting or any kind of art, basically.
Yeah, also allow artists to get the possibility to interact with NFTs and with the split royalties and split revenues from NFTs, because that's something that can change the game to a lot of artists in spreading out their artwork. So that's also something that we have been focusing on.
Mm-hmm. I see. And just for the audience, where are you guys based?
We're based in Portugal.
Yeah, central Portugal.
In the countryside.
Middle of nowhere.
How did you encounter the world of Web3? When was it, and who kind of got you into it?
When it comes to NIR, it started last year in March, because I was working for an association in Lisbon, which is called Roche Studios. So that's a cultural association. They had an NFT festival and then started working with NIR. So I was the community manager of that guild. And then during the first hackathon, NIR obviously wanted to get a lot of creatives in, and you could submit a lot of creative ideas and you would receive a little bounty. And Nuno and me always had the idea for, creating some kind of collective or a creative community in a way. So we submitted a couple of ideas, and then there was one hackathon idea for the meta governance proposal. So in order to submit our idea, we had to create a DAO. And this was basically where our idea that we previously had during COVID started to grow. So we created the DAO and kind of entered into the whole NIR ecosystem.
Yeah, so in there an opportunity to develop an idea that we had kind of been thinking about for some time. I had already contact with, not specifically with Web3 in a sense, but with crypto as a way to kind of survive with my finance outside of the traditional system already for maybe 2 years. Because as an artist, as an independent artist, it can get very difficult to get a fair payment for what you do, especially if you are traveling around and always in search of gigs. And already I'd seen an opportunity in here to explore something new. And then when Tabea introduced us to this opportunity with the hackathon and all that, just seemed sensible.
Mm-hmm. And maybe you can also let us know a little bit more about this world of events that you were doing before, and what was the difficulties there, just for the audience, for the context, in terms of as a creator working on events.
So I've organized events in the past, and but I don't know if this can be applied in everywhere, but especially on development of some projects that we had here in Portugal. From the beginning, is very, very difficult to get institutional funding to catalyze projects, even as an established association or as a collective that is trying to bring on some kind of cultural impact that may also have social impact. We can always focus a lot in the music aspect of it, because that's has been our passion, but also bringing some performative arts and visual arts. And the main difficulty is always finding a way to actually being able to pay artists to support them and to give them a fair compensation for the work, because most of the times what we are encountered with is that recognition is the sort of payment, which of course it's nevertheless a payment, but we live in a monetary system, so we inevitably also need the monetary equivalent for our time. And so by interacting a little bit with crypto space and with Web3, kind of saw in here an opportunity, at least, even if there are not the funds available, at least make everything more transparent and more direct peer-to-peer. so that the transactions go from one person to the other, and there would be less intervenence, less middlemen. Also from this something that I'm quite curious about is about the streaming platforms, how this could actually empower the streaming platforms and help the artists getting a more direct stream of revenue. And yeah, so this has been a little bit my curiosity, and I started dwelling into this space.
I also think that given that we're already in the second year of COVID, it was incredibly difficult to find spaces, count with ticketing, and our goal is really to, when we work with an artist, to be able to pay them accordingly. And it's just impossible to do that because you don't know if the event will be cancelled, if the regulations change. So with the fact that we've been able to receive funding and also develop projects in the last year since we've been active, we've been able to do a couple of events and residencies that otherwise we couldn't have done. So for us, this was really, it was a bliss actually to get to know that option.
100%.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And how does this world that you knew at that time kind of changes now with Web3? So there is this transparency side of things, what you mentioned, right? And more like peer-to-peer nature. What else is different?
I think overall it's way more collaborative and it's easier to connect with other people, even if they're sitting in Africa or in Asia somewhere. Like you can easily connect to people that are like-minded or have an idea or create audio and visual NFTs, for example. I think also the whole Web3 and like the thought or the idea of being decentralized also can change something for the organization yourself. Like this might be a completely new world. You might consider, changing your structure in the organization, or you might consider maybe this is not completely for you because you still want to have it a bit more centralized. So I think it gives a lot of new thoughts for the physical world as well, and I feel that like what we do with Muti is something that I think I can speak for the both of us. We like enjoyed doing, like creating those kind of things. And the fact that we've been able to do it in the last year, and it was fairly easy. Like we had way less obstacles than going to, the town hall and request funding. We're not an association yet. Like it wouldn't have happened. So this was really a nice boost. And really, I don't know, creates a lot of joy, and energy to do more things, I think.
Yeah, and on the sense also allows us to work a little bit more directly when it comes to working locally, especially skipping a little bit this bureaucratic process of requesting funding from town halls and all that. We still work with the town halls to create the events and all that, to make everything bureaucratically legal for the events to happen. But then all the parts of the funding, that's out of the way, and we can work directly with the locals, with the local people, and right away empower a little bit the local economy as well, without being dependent on long waiting lines and a lot of obstacles from these institutions a lot of times.
Yeah, I also actually think it brought in a lot of other collaborations that with people from Lisbon or Portugal that maybe before we wouldn't have met, like Kudo Dao and Incubadora. Like there were some people that we already knew, but we're going to have projects in the future with them. And we've met them through NIR, basically. Like we've been in the same city, but otherwise maybe we would never have crossed each other. So this is nice, like to make things grow together and realize which group has which talent and how can you do something together. I think that's really cool with it as well.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like you're already starting to see kind of like-minded groups locally. Is there like some events that are starting to happen already, or it's still kind of like COVID is still fairly present and it's people don't quite yet hang out in a physical space when it comes to?
We kind of did already 2 physical events. We were supposed to have a third one that got postponed, but it was not because of COVID. It was actually because of weather, which was very interesting. And these 2 physical events were fully funded with the funds with NIR, and it made, at least on my perspective, it made the whole process much easier to at least secure already the artists and the production and the venue itself, everything to make the thing happening, and it was just really about finding a date.
Yeah, we actually had more than 2 events, if I think about it. And I think for us, the goal is also to not focus so much on Lisbon, because there are a lot of groups and there's a lot of cultural movement in Lisbon. But we really want to do things in the countryside as well. So we had one concert or one evening with 3 concerts basically in the middle of nowhere, for example. And so in those places it happens, also in Lisbon you can do events now. I think maybe with limited capacity still, but it's possible. But because our focus is also on artist residencies, for example, and doing concerts of it on special places that don't require a city, I think it's a bit easier in terms of COVID still, because we're outside of the big places. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And now when you think about also the collective, how do you think about the collectives of creators? Like, from my understanding, it's something that existed way before Web3, kind of like people would try to work with each other and help each other, right? And then maybe separately there was kind of like some kind of like financial relationship if people have like music label or something like this. So would you say that Web3 kind of changes it in a way, or is it also kind of like in a way continuation of what people already were doing?
I would say it's an addition. So I think people have already had their collectives and done their work. But now with this opportunity, they actually might be able to live of it, maybe fully, which I think is great. And I think also the collectives, at least that we've encountered or that we work with, I feel there's less greed and it's more the will to collaborate and to think about how can we join forces and also work out the funding and how can we promote and create together, So I think it's just it's like a level up of what they've done before, and it really gives this opportunity for people to get rewarded properly for what they do, which before was difficult, especially because the payment in Portugal is very low. Like, it's a really, really low payment. So being able to work with art and actually survive on that is not so easy usually.
Mm-hmm. And also my understanding that internet up until now didn't really do much in terms of like helping creators to get paid, right? Like, so people can have like, let's say, like Instagram and some other channels to promote, but it's not really directly like helping out, right, as much.
Not really. I kind of believe it helps when you already have the means to invest on it. Then you can right away skip some steps. But on the base of independent creators, I think it kind of opens a little bit the spectrums, mostly because of the collaborations and the kind of communication that exists within this community of creators. Kind of, at least on a personal level, feels that people are more eager to grab the opportunity and to create something together.
Mm-hmm. And how do you also collaborate with people? I know you guys are very active on forum. What are some of the other channels where people kind of come together and actually work together?
I mean, what we mainly use is actually the forum and then our Telegram channel and Instagram. In the beginning, we started to have a Discord channel, which is still active. It's just no one uses that because most of the artists or people we work with, they don't come from Web3. So Discord for them is a huge step. So we try to keep it like on Telegram, like people can join, and obviously contact us on Instagram and even Facebook, even though I guess none of us really appreciates Facebook anymore. We just need it for the events. But other than that, it's Telegram, forum, and Instagram where we're available, and Twitter as well. But we try to keep it to those platforms. Yeah, it's the easiest.
And do you find people like much easier onboarding onto Telegram as opposed to Discord?
Yeah, 100%.
The ones we work with, for sure. I think it might change maybe because Discord will have new functions and you can then tip and connect it to the DAO. But again, those are words and topics that artists we work with, usually they don't know them. They're not aware of that yet. So I think for us to go back to Discord is going to take a while. Yeah.
And do you find that people actually actively using forums, or that's also something that's, because I know forums existed in the beginning of the internet, and we had all this like kind of social media kind of platforms like Facebooks of the world that kind of like aggregated all of the attention. So do you find it easy on a forum side to get people to start to use forum to collaborate?
Personally, I do enjoy that. I do enjoy the forum kind of debate because it's open for anyone that may express an opinion to interact. Doesn't mean that all the opinions have to be considered for a given project or all that. But I kind of enjoy that. I've used forums already a lot in the past, like tech focus for like musical instruments, these kind of things. And honestly, from what I understood, a lot of people that we have been interacting with, artists, they usually adapt well to going to the forum. It's not something as alien as Telegram, for example. I kind of find that Telegram can be a bit more, not overwhelming, but more on the sense like another communication app sort of thing, another app on your phone to pay attention to, as with the forum is a link in the computer or in the browser that you kind of go when you need, sort of thing.
Yeah, I also think that once people understand that the forum is needed to keep it transparent and to request payouts or to propose an idea, I think then for people it makes sense. So sometimes we onboard artists because they do a stream, because we do those streams in the Metaverse, for example. So they would receive a payout, and then afterwards it might take a month or two, and then they realize like, oh, actually we can create something with this. And that's when, the process of thought kind of starts, and then they get to it and they discover this. So I think, actually the forum works quite well overall for that.
Mm-hmm. And how do you think also about the plan for this year? What are you planning to accomplish overall in 2022?
So the plan for this year, we had a lot of plans.
We have a lot of plans.
We have a lot of plans always. So the first plan would be to establish a legal entity as well. To be able to also apply for the fiat funding, let's say, and to just have an entity set and not just have a bunch of private people doing things basically. And then we've been in touch with NearHub to also create a NearHub space for Muti. And so now we've used crypto voxels, but we thought it would be nice to, have a metaverse space on Near as well. We've been in touch with Minting Music to create also a marketplace, which is then will be integrated to our website. We have a couple of events, like one will happen in May. And I think the plan is really to keep on funding artists and also, getting a bit more into DeFi to eventually become more self-sustainable, because we're not really a company, but obviously we want the DAO to be self-sustainable and not always rely on funding. We're not there yet. We just started a year ago. But I think like creating events in, really nice places somewhere outdoors and having artists and doing like different kind of events, I would say, providing a different side of the culture. That overall would be the goal. And also working more with NFTs and trying NFTs as tickets, like those little things you can try in the Web3, and see how people adapt to it and the pros and cons, like really exploring that space. I think that would be the idea.
Mm-hmm. And you also mentioned Metaverse. So you're also doing some of the virtual world events as well?
Yeah, we have been doing some sets from the artists that reach out to us, or we reach out to them. To do recordings of a live set of a performance, of a concert, within 30 minutes to 1 hour usually, that we give funds for show. And it's an opportunity that came to us. We were not really looking for it, to start streaming things in the Metaverse, but we start having the possibility of renting out a parcel from Marmajay, and start slowly exploring that realm of the Metaverse. And it's quite interesting because it attracts a lot of, let's say, newbies into this. I consider myself a newbie, and seeing a lot of artists that go there to watch the gigs, seeing that they're going to be streamed in the Metaverse, and the excitement and the hype that brings, it's something really, really rewarding working with, on a sense, even though it's kind of weird.
And do you use crypto voxels for this today, or there are like multiple places?
At the moment, we're only using crypto voxels, but we are exploring the possibility of getting something from Muti.
Yeah, like we're talking to NearHub to eventually use NearHub, and I don't know, like might be considering also exploring some other platforms eventually, but for now it's crypto voxels because, to be honest, I really enjoy like changing the space and the way it's built. Like I'm changing the space for every stream, so we do this once per week, and for me this is kind of a nice digital creative thing to do as well once in a while. But for now it's that.
That's really cool. And for crypto voxels, is it expensive to change things or not really? It's like fairly doable.
So we're not having the funds to buy a space on crypto voxels. That's why we were able to rent from the Mama Jade DAO. And to change the things, I mean, we can create 3D objects and they don't need to be minted as an NFT from OpenSea. They can just be uploaded, but you can upload your photos and NFTs. And screens, and I'm also not a pro. This for me is a bit like a playground. But it's fun, I like those kind of visual games. So we basically rent the parcel, pay the rent for that. And yeah, we're not having the means yet to buy a space. We're not that self-sustainable yet, unfortunately. Maybe in the future.
And yeah, we will have more virtual spaces coming up. I think I'm super excited for Neurverse. That's another one. I can connect you to William after the podcast if you haven't met him yet. And I was wondering, so what works for you today in terms of spreading the word to creators about this? Is it a particular channel that works for you? So we talked a little bit about which channels are easier for onboarding for people, but I was wondering also, like, when it comes to just like bringing people into the space, them learning about it, like what so far has worked? Sounds like virtual events generate a lot of attention. What are some of the other ways to bring people into the space?
I think it's mainly mouth to mouth. Like we tried in the beginning to promote a lot and talk with people about it, and it just took a while for them to understand or wrap their head around it. And I think now we've reached a point where a couple of people we know did a stream or received some funding, and then they speak with other people about it. And this is how it gets going in a way. Initially, I think the first fundings we had for the recording session was from someone that was already in the forum, so was not related to Muti at all in the beginning, but was someone who was already familiar with the space itself. But because we tried to focus on people who have never use this. We try to do a lot of onboarding sessions, like really one-to-one. So each of our council members, like we have 3 council members, we take a lot of time to do onboarding sessions, like to explain what's an NFT, how do you mint it, what's a DAO, what's the wallet, how to get your NIR, what you can do with it, the conversion to fiat as well, which is super important, I think, at least for our part. So it's mainly like, really taking the time to talk to people and explaining that and creating guides and having the time to teach them. And I think then it actually helps. Then it takes a month and then people come up with their proposals and show the interest of creating their own DAO zone. I would say that's it.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Kind of like reminds me of also, I had a small road trip last year in Louisiana, in US, like in a rural part of US, and my friend and we were talking a lot on the trip, and he got really into Web3. He actually went to Lisbon after this for NearCon because of this trip. But what was interesting is that he was kind of writing about it afterwards, and he also mentioned that like you kind of need kind of sharper quote unquote in the space, as in like you can promote a lot, but like in the end of the day, you need somebody to kind of like walk you through some of this first experiences, I feel like.
Yeah, it is also, I think, very important to understand what do you do with this money. I think the first time I got the Binance card or the crypto card and I paid, I don't know, in the supermarket, and then a friend of mine was seeing this, and then she understood like, you can actually use this crypto money in the physical world, like this is a connection that a lot of times is not there, because it's like people think it's just about investment and digital thing, and it is.
But if that, sorry, continue.
But like the physical connection and how to use it, I think is super important, and I think that's what changes maybe the availability, the interest of people as well.
Yeah, but like, I was just gonna say that it also changes a bit when we are talking with someone about converting their fiat money into crypto and then using crypto to pay stuff. That would be one spectrum, but when you are getting crypto funds, so you are not converting your fiat, it's something that you are getting on top of your fiat as crypto. I feel that it gets easier to also interact with the space, because there is not this thought that you are losing money or you are throwing money to the unknown sort of. And on this, I think it makes also easier for the artists to get engaged with the thing, because on a sense, you don't have to do anything apart from creating the wallet, receiving the funds, and then go through the process. And by going through the process, it's you're kind of already inside.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's very helpful to understand. What do you think also about the value of user experience and things like that in products and in Web3? Do you find that there is a big difference in terms of like different like NFT platforms, for example, in terms of UX and as a result like easiness of getting started? Or do you feel like it's not so much about UX? People can figure out UX. It's more about this kind of like explaining some of this upfront, what we discussed.
I think a lot of times the UX can help a lot. I think sometimes can also make things a bit more difficult. There are some platforms that, because we do understand that this is all still in development, so things are still in improvement and sharpening the edges and all that. But I think regarding getting the wallet, regarding conversion steps, getting your fiat into crypto or crypto into fiat, and for example, we work mostly with a stable coin within the ref finance system with DAI, so that it's always a stable coin that the artists are getting, so their funds are not volatile. And then they have to go through the process of converting those DAI into NEAR and then sending those NEAR to their exchange platform so they can ultimately use them as fiat money. Sometimes the user experience of the platforms could be a little bit more easygoing or have a little bit more guides, especially because it's changing almost on a weekly basis, the features and the add-ons. But once someone gets the interest on it and gets the grip on it, I think it's fairly easy to just jump right into it.
Mm-hmm. And also, what do you think about the like NFT collector side of things? From your experience, who these people are? Is it like a combination of people who buy things to support creations and kind of like people who actually become kind of like fans of artists and directly kind of contribute that way? Or do you also find people who like more use it for like speculative nature? Is it like kind of like mix of both?
I think with the NFTs, that's it's also for us still very experimental, let's say. I mean, when we started this, everyone was saying like the big collectors will not be outside of Ethereum. So I don't know if that's going to change. I think what I like about the idea of NFTs is the use cases you can have, like certificates, tickets, redeem your merch like you had on NearCon as well. So I think we rather tried to do those kind of like try this way. We also haven't found out, the recipe to sell 1,000 NFTs. Like we usually speak to the artists and we see like, does it make sense to have a big edition or like just a single edition, and then they choose the price. For me, the NFTs is not so much about collecting. It's more about what you actually can do with it, and the fact that when it's being sold again, the artist will still receive something. Like this for me is really important. And I think the experience we had until now is that people who bought it, they were supportive, or they knew a bit about Muti, or they read about the cause. And so it was less about collecting. It was more about the communitary sense behind it, because I think the community and the creatives especially, I think is actually really nice. And people support each other, which is what we do as well. Like sometimes I browse through it, and then if it's not too expensive, I collect some, because I think it's nice to support artists as well. So yeah, in terms of collectors, I'm not really sure, to be honest. Let's see what the future brings to that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And when you think about also forms of creation, so there is maybe like two things to explore. One is like forms of creation, kind of like art versus music versus audio, like podcast we're recording right now. Unfortunately, not in a Web3 platform yet, like video. How do you think about the evolution of the like creativity in a space? Seems like the art side kind of really blew up last year and is really prevalent on Ethereum, on Near, actually in many places. Music is very early, at least like my so far kind of assessment of this, and then video is like even earlier than this. Is it like same for you what you're seeing, or you're seeing something different?
Regarding music, I feel that is still very early, and the video as well, like the NFT aspects of it. I don't understand much about the NFTs and all that. I do understand the benefits and a little bit of the code behind it, but there is on a sense, like I think it's still very limited what you can do with it. So if I'm buying an NFT on Mintbase and it's a video NFT, if it doesn't come with a downloadable link, I can only see that video on Mintbase. And that is still very limiting, because I would, since I cannot create a playlist, it kind of takes a little bit the usage away from the NFT, especially if they are audiovisual things that you like to consume on a regular basis, sort of. I think it empowers a lot the need for new creative methods, for sure, 100%. Also with this interaction with the Metaverse and with VR, because it's a space that can be explored and it's more or less where the real value of NFTs is lying at the moment. It's more regarding the metaverse and, like I said, the collectibles and kind of speculative kind of market thing as well. So I think it's honestly it's kind of good to empower different kinds of creating, to explore different kinds of doing the same. As for myself, trying to envision how to make music to fit in the metaverse that has this spatial feeling for the metaverse, for example, for a visual artist, maybe to create a 360 experience with their art and exploring the mediums. So I think it's good that it's on the early stages and that it already shows kind of a lot of possibility, because it gives us a lot of freedom to think ahead. Sorry.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And also, what do you think about the use cases for NFTs? You mentioned the ticketing. Maybe I definitely see that reputation side will become a thing at some point, as in like you have like badge, for example, you came to hackathon or you organized the concert and help there, and you'll probably have some kind of representation that you've done it, and maybe you can even use this reputation in other contexts, maybe like in virtual world, or invite only event, things like that. So how do you think about the use cases? Kind of like what do you see as like starting to emerge on a kind of like what NFTs can do side of things, and also where do you see the discussions going in terms of like how people think it will evolve?
I mean, I feel like all of this is still very in the beginning. So there might be use cases that we don't even know yet. I think at least for us, for the collective and the DAO, what is interesting is the ticketing, and also the combine it with merch. Because our goal is really to support the artists, so we don't count with, for the next event, 100 people are going to buy tickets through NFT platforms. We're not there yet. I think our public is not there yet. But I think having this, or having it as like the proof of attendance, you go somewhere and you have your ticket as a collectible, or you go somewhere and do this kind of treasure hunt, like the idea you had on a concert, and you would scan something and receive a new song from that artist that only 15 people can listen to, for example. I think those things can be really cool. But again, I think it really depends on where you're located. So if you do this in Lisbon during NeoCon, obviously people are aware of this. If you do this in the middle of the forest somewhere else, maybe not so much. So I think then it makes sense to explain, why do you use an NFT? Why don't you have a paper ticket? What is the pro for the artist? How can you support? So yeah, we're going to explore that, I think, in the next year. Let's see.
There sort of has to be a perk associated to it to capture the attention as of now. Because if there is a traditional ticket being sold and there is an NFT being sold, the process of creating a wallet and all that just to get the NFT ticket has to add more to the ticket than just the ticket sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. And also, what do you see as a common kind of criticisms of Web3? Because I know there's a big discussion about like energy use and things like that. Do you see other types of like criticism today that come in like from people who like just starting to hear about it, but maybe like didn't really fully jump into it? Do you see like a lot of kind of like sentiment changing towards it, or not so much?
On a personal level, sometimes when we speak about Web3, it's right away associated with the cryptocurrencies and the volatility and the markets and this kind of stuff. And even after expressing that what we're actually doing within this space, within the Web3, interacts with the cryptocurrencies, of course, and it's also subject to market volatility, but has nothing to do with that. Of course, most of the times the general idea is that that's still a bit illusional, and it's still lying in sort of a cloud that eventually, or that this kind of an illusion that we are living in. I don't know. I cannot really say if it is or not. I think it's a great opportunity that we have in front of us, and if we can keep on exploring it, beautiful.
Yeah, I feel that the connection between art and creativity and Web3 and the whole crypto investment thing is usually not there, because people think about it when they hear crypto, like, big investments, money laundering, I don't know, criminal aspects of it, whatever, like black market and so on, but they don't really know that you can be creative and you can work with funds, you can work with NFTs, you can actually, be creative within this space. So I think this is the main difference. But once people see what we do or other DAOs do and how artists can be supported by that, usually the mind changes. And obviously everyone needs to educate themselves, and it's still capitalism, and it's still about, it is money at the end of the day. It just has more opportunities, I think, and you don't need to be a millionaire to get started in it, and you can explore a lot of things and you can grow. And it's just decentralized. So I think if people have the slightest interest, they can start digging into it and, educate themselves and find their space. That's what I experienced, at least.
Mm-hmm. And where can our audience find more information about what you're working on? What's the best link for them to maybe go into? And we'll leave it in a podcast note.
The best thing, I guess, is the Linktree or Twitter, so the Muti Collective Twitter, and then for the old school ones, Instagram, the Muti Collective. So this is where we post all the updates. We also have workshops. We'll have a workshop this week, for example, and all the streams. So we try to collect everything in all those spaces so everyone is able to get the info if needed.
And how do people tune into the workshop?
The workshop, so we have a Facebook event, very old school, and then it is posted on Twitter as well, and will be held via Zoom. From David. So David from the Foundation will give a little DeFi course for everyone who is interested in that.
That's cool.
To educate.
All right. Well, thank you for coming today. I think it was a very insightful conversation for people who are new to the space.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for inviting us.